DeCordova in the States and the Dick Collins Legacy Speakers Forum. We are so grateful to have you here today, tonight, to talk to us and listen to what our panelists are going to say about what's happening to Lake Granbury. My name is Shelley Mathis, and I'm your hostess tonight. For those of you who don't know about the Dick Collins Legacy Speakers Forum, it's an organization here at DeCordova that works to present speakers who are going to inform, educate, or entertain us. It's named after our late neighbor, Dick Collins, who was the former general manager of AMED, who held these programs once a week, which was really hard to do. And I'd like to recognize my committee members on this group, especially Alta Collins, Dick's husband, and I know I saw Carol Stars, so y'all wave, yeah. But a special thanks goes to Jim Klein, who really did all the heavy lifting for this program. And also, I would like to recognize some of the board of directors of DeCordova. I know some of you are seated over here, so will you wave? And I thank you for your attendance and your support. And I know we have members from the DeCordova City Council here tonight, so you all wave and thank you as well. Do we have anybody from the Hood County meetings here tonight? Anyway. I know with this program is being recorded for Granbury Television, and thank you very much for coming tonight. If you all have any questions as the panelists speak, we have papers and pencils for you to write them down, and we'll collect those questions later. And there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions too. But last year, in that horrible drought of 2011, I think that none of us were surprised that the lake levels dropped. But when we started getting rain in 2012, I think we were also surprised that the lake is still under stress. So a lot of us are wondering what is going on. Luckily, we have a group of concerned citizens who are already working on this problem, the Lake Granbury Waterfront Homeowners and Their Friends Association. And this group has been asking questions and seeking solutions for the problems we face if Lake Granbury stays in its current condition or worsens. That's going to impact the whole community, not just waterfront owners, but all of us. So I'm very grateful to introduce to you Joe Williams. Joe, there you are. And he's the Vice President of the Lake Granbury Waterfront Homeowners and Friends Association, and he's going to guide us through the problems Lake Granbury is experiencing. And will you join me in thanking Joe for coming tonight?
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate it. As I was visiting today among the crowd and stuff, I had heard about this Dick Collins Legacy Forum and the legacy that he actually left behind. And I think you'd be proud of all of you coming together here today to, as he is the father of this particular forum. And I think be very proud that, we could gather again as friends and neighbors among all and be able to talk and actually look at what's going on around in the community here. First thing I would like to try to do is I'd like to go ahead and introduce dignitaries that are in and among us. And the first that I'd like to introduce from the Senator Brian Birdwell's office. They're down here in Austin stuff. We have a representative from there. Her name is Travis Blackburn. If you'll stand up, just kind of say hello here. We do appreciate you coming. She's the district manager here in Granbury, so on the state level. And I was very honored that Ryan, Senator Birdwell, would send her and be able to keep up with what's going on here in Lake Granbury. Next, I would like to introduce you from the County Commissioner's Office, and that is Judge Daryl Cockerham. If you'll stand up and say hello. I really appreciate Daryl coming. For a long time, for the last 2 or 3 years, he's been an adversary, not adversary, but adversary of certain things, but not. But he is friendly to the Lake Granbury community here. We appreciate him coming. Here from the City Council today. First of all, I'd like to introduce City Councilman Mickey Parsons. Please stand up. Also from City Council here, City Councilman Laurel Perkle. And I know he's back there somewhere. There is City Councilman Tony Allen. Where are you, Tony? Thank you. And City Councilman Mitch Tyra. He is here. I saw him. There he is. Thank you. I really want to brag about these guys. A year and a half ago, it was 18 months ago, LGWA had gone to the City Council and brought information to the City Council as to what some of the issues that we saw that was going on here on Lake Granbury. And these councilmen, they stood up and they wrote a resolution, and the resolution basically said that before the BRA could have any water rights, they needed to do a water management plan. They refused to do so. Back in January, we went down to the state in front of the TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, along with this resolution, along with the letter from Representative Keffer and State Senator Brian Birdwell. The TCEQ mandated that the BRA do a water management study, and they had to do it within 10 months. They wanted 3 years, they have to do it in 10 months. So on November 26th, next month, they will complete their water management study. And then we have about 18 months or so after that to review it, and it'll go back to the state. So we have some time coming ahead. Going on here, let me go back to my notes here. We're going to do a video. We had a really nice video, but we couldn't get it uploaded. So we're going to go ahead and go on to the next speakership here and stuff. What I'd like to talk about first before I do that, when I was visiting with the crowd here today, I had a couple of stories that I heard that I think is very unique to the community here. One of them was, and we were talking about it, is how special that the city of Granbury and also the lake is to the community and to Hood County. One of the stories that I was told today, I had a family that talked about how they wanted to have their family come down from the Metroplex to visit over the July 4th weekend. And I think all of you know that's a fairly big weekend. And the story was that they had their kids and grandkids. I think there was a couple of great-grandkids that actually came down, and they were able to come down and join the lake. And of course, over that weekend and stuff, it was a very, very special time that they could load up the family, load up the boat. You know, on that afternoon and evening as dusk came, they could go on down the lake and among all the other 100 boats or so, 200, 300, they could actually see the fireworks from the city of Granbury. And this obviously had been going on for several years. And then, of course, at night they come back and you've got all the boats going back across. But they were telling me about how their granddaughter was out there enjoying the fireworks and they, seeing the fireworks going. And they were saying, well, they said, Grandpa, I really enjoy the fireworks here, but, there's another fireworks, display. So I said, well, what are you talking about? I don't see one in here. He says, well, there's one in the sky, there's one on the lake. And it's like, wow, of course you can see the shadow, the reflection of her arm and stuff. So I think all of us have a lot of good memories here as far as the lake is concerned and the enjoyment of the community here around the lake here. It's what we call home. Dan, if you'll put up that picture real quick. We don't have a remote here. There's also fishing stories. Now this is my 85-year-old father. And several times a week, or several times a year, I'm sorry, he comes down from Keller, they open Keller, and they enjoy coming down. Of course, my mother, she turned 85 yesterday, as a matter of fact. And my mother loves to come down and shop on the square and go over there and, to the different shops and stuff. And my father comes here to fish. His idea of fishing is when we come to the lake, we go to the refrigerator, we get our ice cold Miller Lite, and we go out on the dock, okay, get in the easy chair, then he pulls out I don't know if you know what it is, but it's called Old Roy dog food, okay, and he chums it out onto the lake, and he waits about 10 minutes. Then he goes back to the cupboard, and he gets out the kids' Cheerios, and he comes back and he puts it on a treble hook, and he throws it out there. Well, that's the results. And so, anyway, he enjoys doing this and stuff, and I really believe that this is our kind of fish, and I think this is what we all should be doing. And hopefully, all of us here, as we go forward here and stuff, we will all continue to be able to do this. And he's a wonderful man. Is the landscaping changing around Lake Granbury? And all of us, yes it is. Will the Lake Granbury experience ever be the same? The BRA is asking for a 60% increase in the water rights of and above what they have now from the TCEQ. The amount of water that they're asking for will fill Lake Granbury to full capacity 3 times over. What will be the ramifications of this? Will there be economic damage to Granbury or to Hood County? Our first guest speaker, I think, will answer a lot of these questions. I would like to give you a little bit of background about our speaker. He actually wrote it on the back of the paper for me. I knew he has quite a background. He's a undergraduate from Baylor. He's got a degree in math and economics. He has a master's degree from economics from LSU. He's a postgraduate from UTA and worked in accounting. Baylor, his wife is a Baylor grad. They have 2 sons, 2 grandkids. He has a lot of career in banking, all the way back to several chains of banks there. Today he is the Director of Finance. I want to welcome here our first guest tonight, City Manager Wayne McKibben.
Okay, that's not my presentation. We need to go to one to BRA response. My name is Wayne McKibben. I'm the city manager of the city of Granbury. I have the honor to work with the citizens of Granbury, and there we go. And we have challenges in front of us, like Joe just said. I wanted to address to you, our city council has been forthright and going forward. They're addressing many of these issues that we'll talk about here in a minute. And we feel it's probably the most financial risk that we as citizens of the Granbury and Hood County have in front of us. I recently had the honor the opportunity to own a house on a lake. And those property values are probably 30-35% greater than the properties if you're not on the lake, just to be honest about things. And so when you make those kinds of investments, it's part of our lives, it's part of our savings, it's part of our livelihood, and we need to be protective of that. Because without the lake, if in fact the city of Granbury were to lose the lake, it would probably cost us about 35% of our ad valorem value. And I've heard people say, well, I don't live on the lake, so I don't care. Okay, well, you do care. Because if we lose 35% of the ad valorem value, everybody's taxes will go up. Because either that or services will be cut way back. So everybody needs to be concerned. This is not something just impacting on waterfront owners. And you have to be aware of that. So our city council has come forward. You'll hear some things that we're doing that we think will help with this process. But everybody's going to have to be involved with this. And we're up here, the Lake Granbury Waterfront Owners Association has been a leader in this. We appreciate that. and I know that DeCordova has a lot of interest in it, and they've led that challenge as well. So let's walk through really when I got involved, and that was once they decided to have a water plan. BRA basically called a meeting, and it was a public hearing meeting, and said, everybody show up and tell us what you think. Well, they didn't plan on everybody telling. A lot of people showed up and told them what they thought. And so this is part of the presentation that I had made to that group. And it really evolved back over the last year. It was really over last year. Last year, not this last summer, but the summer before, when the lake really got down. It was a really emotional type event for many people because they had never seen the lake like that for some time. And so, you know, as city manager, I was approached by many people that were emotional about the lake and about how it was impacting their lives. And so, as I listened to it, you know, my job is to talk to the BRA, and I've had the honor to sit down and visit with the BRA. And they're good people. They're hard-working people. They're smart people. Phil Ford's an ex-general, I think. And a lot of military people, a lot of engineers. Emotion's not their long suit, though. Okay. In fact, they listen to emotional type responses, and so as I heard the emotional responses, you know, I'm a CPA, so I think in terms of I think in terms of quantification of emotion, and so that's what brought forth the response, because I think that's what really gets the attention of BRA and their people. And so, and in fact, it has had some response. The BRA has responded. And so I'm going to go through that. This is responding to their water management plan proposal. And why don't you go to the next slide? And so as I was looking, and so my job was to go through and evaluate that proposal. And as you're going to find out, as he said a while ago, you know, if the lake were to go dry, Lake Granbury only holds 128,000 acre feet. We'll look at that in a minute. Okay, that's 128,000 acre feet. There's about 300,000 gallons plus in an acre foot. So that's a lot of water. And the first thing that everybody was saying that was catching your eye and was reason for everybody to sit down and be quiet was, hey, we're in a drought. So because we're in a drought, it's going to be very important that we can't supply water like we used to, and everything's going to go down, and there's not going to be enough water for everybody. And we understand that concept to a certain point. But as I was going through, and we're good Texans, okay? Hood County is probably as good Texans as I've ever run into. And I've had the honor of living here now for 6 or 7 years. So we understand, we sacrifice just like other Texans, but we want to be treated fairly. And that's what this thing is all about, okay? Is you gotta treat us fair. And look at the look at the impact that you're gonna have on us whenever you make your decisions, BRA. And that's what we're going forward to tell them. So when I heard that comment that, hey, we're in a drought and you guys just gotta, you know, toughen up and take it, and I'm like, okay, well, let me think about that. And then as I'm flipping through the pages, along comes this page. It's in there. This is BRA's page, okay? This is not my number. This is BRA's number, okay? Now remember, Lake Granbury has 128,000 acre feet when it's full capacity in it. At the bottom of this page was, during normal years, 6 million acre feet flow out of the Brazos into the Gulf of Mexico. 6 million acre feet of water flows into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, to solve all of Lake Granbury's problems, you know, and keep us at full capacity, is probably only a need of up to 25 to 30,000 acre feet. So, you know, there is solution there, okay? There is not management of the flow of the water in the Brazos River. That's the first point, okay? If we can just capture half of that, 3 million acre feet, that doesn't go to the fishes, and instead is being used by Texans, that's a big start, you know? And we need to look at that. Now, that one, we're asking what for another, how many thousand acre feet? Was it 400,000 acre feet?
400, yeah.
Yeah, around 400,000 acre feet. So there's a lot of solutions that needs to be made on digging holes and capturing this water that's flowing into the Gulf. And this plan ought to address that. I see nowhere in this plan where that is in fact being addressed. So we brought that to their attention. They said, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Second one, all right, let's go to the next one. The next one is, and it has to do with, in my background in economics and accounting, as I was trying to quantify the impact of the emotion that I was seeing in people, I said I have to think through what is the impact, first of all, to the ad valorem value. Now, Lake Granbury, who is in Hood County has $5,242,000,000 of ad valorem value. Now that's sitting on a 128,000 acre foot lake. So every 1,000 acre feet that are released out of this lake impacts $40,959,000 worth of valuation. That's a lot of money. And if you live in the way Lake Granbury is built, with the canals and how it stretches with the fingers, every time 1,000 acre feet, somebody's house loses value, and loses value quickly. Depending on where you are on the elevation of the lake, your house can go from water to no water very quickly. So I said, okay, at least I know with 1,000, now we're going to convert it into 1,000, to impact 1,000 acre feet. You look at Lake Whitney and Possum Kingdom. Those are the two major reservoirs on either side of us. Okay, those are important in that they hold most of the water for the BRA. Now the BRA stores water in the northern region of their system because they can only release water. They can't pump water back up to us. If we go dry, we're out of luck, okay? But they can release water downstream to help. So they try to basically conserve water in the northern part of the region as much as possible. In Lake Whitney, Bosque County, they have about 1,231,000,000, I'm sorry, valuation, but their lake is 553,000 acre feet. Impact being about 2 million too. So every 1,000 acre foot that's released there is about 2.2 million impact of people's homes and valuation. And so therefore, for every 1,000 acre feet released between Lake Whitney and Lake Granbury, it's 18 times more painful to release water out of Lake Granbury than it is out of Lake Whitney. Looking at Possum Kingdom as well, they have about $2.5 million, $2,524,000,000 of valuation. And with all seriousness, this is before the fires. Okay, I'll pull this before they had the fires. There's a lot of that valuation now gone, hasn't been replaced. But back then, because they have 540,000 acre feet in their lake, their impact of releasing water is about $4.6 million per 1,000 acre feet. It's about 8.7 times more painful to release water out of Lake Granbury than it is out of Possum Kingdom Lake. Now, BRA needs to be looking at the economic impact of what their decisions are. Okay? We, as you'll see, we're stewards of assets of the state of Texas, and we need to take care of people's economic value. And so this should be part of their decision making. Okay? To say, you know, I'm going to look at that. Let's go to the next slide. But also, how are we impacting people? Okay? We got to be oriented to the people of Texas as well. Lake Granbury, Hood County, there's 52,000 people in Hood County that really rely on the Lake Granbury for a lot of their wealth and valuation. But once again, 128,000 acre feet, impact 1,000 acre foot, you're impacting 406 people every time you release 1,000 acre foot. Going on to 18,000, the population in Bosque County is 18,306, with theirs. you're impacting 33 people with a 1,000 acre foot release. And with Possum Kingdom, you're impacting 52. So it's 12 times more painful from a population standpoint to release water out of Lake Granbury versus Lake Whitman. And for Possum Kingdom, about 7.8. So, let's look at that. Go to the next slide. What's a little irritating to me, and sometimes I'll look at it from this perspective, if I was going to plan to mismanage the Brazos River water asset, what I would do to mismanage it is I would take the most water from the smallest lake with the highest economic value and the largest population. Okay? So let's look at what their plan says they're going to do, okay? So go to the next slide. On the left, what you see the two tall lakes right there, and you see Lake Granbury in the middle, the small. Does everybody, I know it's hard for some to see, but if you'll see, this is one of their graphs in their presentation. So that confirms that the 128 versus the 533 we were talking about. That just gives you a graphic vision of the comparison between these three lakes, okay? Now let's look at the water that is being actually removed from the lake. That's the next slide. Well, guess what? That number 4 right there in the middle, that's Lake Granbury. So they're taking the most water out of the smallest lake. So they're well on their way to producing a plan that mismanages the assets of the Brazos. And this is the rest of those small, graphs that you see are what they're taking out of the other lakes. And of course, we all know why. I mean, and let me say this, we're very supportive of the nuclear plant, but they do pull water out of Lake Granbury. And that's why you see those big pulls coming out of Lake Granbury, because that's where they sell the water. And you can hear the defense that says that's why they built Lake Granbury, was to support the nuclear plant. And I agree. I got no problem with, we believe in the nuclear plant. A lot of our economy is based on that nuclear plant. And we want it to be successful, we want it to survive and to produce. But what this plan is showing, okay, I mean, I spent all my career in banking, as he was saying. I actually went through the Republic Bank, NCNB, Nations Bank, Bank of America, went through that whole realm, And so I did a lot of presentations being in charge of strategic planning and management information and budgeting. And anytime you present a plan, you don't just present the problem. This is a clerical report here. This is just telling us what the clerical reports are, is what they're doing. There is no solution to the offset to that, okay? Because we've already seen that the Lake Granbury is surrounded by the most economic value and the most people, okay? So you can't take the most water out of the smallest lake without having a solution. That's the plan. The plan is, the solution is the plan, not the presenting something to us like this. It just tells us what they're going to do. Go to the next slide. The next slide, once again, shows what they're going to do, the projected demands all the way through 2025 without the Comanche Peak facility. And then if the Comanche Peak facility were expanded, look at what the result would be. It's the next slide. That's how it would jump, okay? Now that's going to have a tremendous impact on the lake. And they went through it and said, gee, sorry guys, but you guys lose. And we're saying, no, we're not going to lose, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to try and come up with a solution that offsets that. You need a solution. You can go to the next slide as well. Okay, I thought there was no. So what we have to be concerned about is that right now there's a release ratio that basically says every 1.75 acre feet they release from Possum Kingdom, they release 1 from Granbury. Well, that's great, but when you're having impacts of 10 and 12 times greater on Granbury, you can't do that. You need to incorporate those release ratios into that so that there's more water released from a bigger reservoir into ours to keep it more. We can't ask for constant lake, but we can ask for a fair treatment of those relations, of those releases, and how it's related to our lake. And so we appreciate the positive number there where they recognize some, but it's not good enough, okay? We need more, okay? We need them to be more concerned about the impact of their release ratios. Next slide, please. You know, economic value and population are human factors that need to be considered into the statistical computations. And in that regard, we need to be more interested in managing the assets of Texas, like I said. And right now, their plan doesn't include those human factors. Now, that would be a terrible story to tell you if, in fact, we as City of Granbury, through the council and myself, were not working toward a solution. And I'm happy to say that the City Council in the last meeting, I think it was the meeting before last, wasn't it? Yeah. The meeting before last, we have actually hired an attorney from Austin, Texas. His name is Ken Ramirez. And he's going to help us make our presentation to BRA. He was very successful for the City of Austin, for Town Lake, in making the argument that it should be a lake of last resort, okay? We're going to go at it from a couple of different angles where we're going to meet with the BRA, make our presentation, make them understand what our issues are. And BRA has a history of listening to people when you really bring forth the data. We're hiring a hydrologist, okay, to do some analysis as to the need for the impact that we need to keep the lake at a more acceptable level. And so the council's made that commitment. And we believe that we can have a success presenting the right information in the right format and going forward. That really is my presentation. I'm open to any questions you might have.
We're going to do it at the end.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate your presentation there.
Hey, Joe. The gentleman here has a question.
Well, we're going to wait till the end.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to bring our next guest speaker up here in just a minute. Before we do, I would like to introduce Judy McHugh, President of LGWA and Friends, and she has a few words to speak.
Thank you, Joe. Well, I'm really kind of excited about following Wayne because my presentation was a little bit has less impact than Wayne's, but I think it's great that he went first because now those of you who are not aware of what was going on in more detail about the lake and what the plan is to hopefully make some changes, now you have an idea of what we're looking at. I think one of the most telling things that we found, and Wayne mentioned this, and we found this out sometime into this situation with the BRA, is that they do not factor in the economic impact into their water management plan. So it's up to us to encourage them to alter whatever it is. I mean, you know, we have the data, Wayne's done the figures, and that's really important. And so I just thought I'd throw that in. Thank you, Wayne. What I really wanted to do was I wanted to thank a few people also. And at first, when I was given this list, first of all, I want to thank DeCordova Bend Estates and the Dick Collins Forum for inviting us to be here. You just don't know how exciting it is to be in front of people that are interested in learning and supporting the lake and the lake level, because we're the only ones that can do that. We have to do it, and we can do it together because of the numbers, you know. We can do it together. We have some great leaders in our city, in our county, and the state, and I want to thank all of you for being here. And at first, I was not going to single out these people because of time's sake, but since we're kind of off schedule anyway, I'm going to do it. Excuse me. I want to thank these homeowner associations who are in attendance. You are a group of people that we at LGWA and Friends have been trying to reach out to and get to because your fingers have fingers. And that's who we want to get. We want more fingers to create hands to come together. And I want to thank Bentwater, Blue Water Shores, Catalina Bay, Stonegate, the Vineyards, Fountain Village, and Ashley Oaks, DeCordova Bin Condos, Mallard Point, Pecan Plantation, and Port Ridgely. Those are the people that are here representing, yes sir? Oh, excuse me. Oak Trail. I heard it, Oak Trail Shores. Oak Trail Shores is also represented here, and we thank you so very much, and all of the rest of you for being here too. Now, the other thing I wanted to say is a lot of people ask, what are you guys about? What do you do? And so I was told to be brief. Well, actually, we decided it would be better if I could be brief, because it's a lot of there's a lot of work, as you can imagine, that's been going on. So this is my fruit of the loom explanation. That's brief, by the way. I'm here all week. No, I'm not. What we are about, simply put, we're a 501(c)(3) organization that we're about saving Lake Granbury and all that it means to all of us. If we had been able to show you the video, that was something that we're very proud of. Unfortunately, technologically, you know, well, it didn't happen, but that's what we're about. And how we do that, we're trying to do that by equalizing taxes, increasing education and expansion of our membership and community involvement, thereby increasing our visibility and influence. We're raising money through fundraisers like SaveLakeGranbury.org and Raise the Lake. Those are both in progress as we speak. Using the money to seek counsel in whatever form that may take. Continuously striving to protect the lake from those entities seeking to destroy it, and supporting those local and state officials who have shown their support for us. And that's what we're about, and we would invite you to join us. And there are lots of ways you can do that. You can be a member, or we are always looking for great people to help on various projects, and we have some open positions on our steering committee. And again, I thank you very much for being here. Click mine.
Thanks, Judy.
Here's Joe back.
Thank you. If you would like to view the video, we had made, our LGWA team had made a video just shortly a while back, and everybody, some people have seen it here. It's go to SaveLakeGranbury.org, and it's on that website. It gives you a real good view of, yes, okay. We would like to have the question and answers, Judy says, at the end. So what we're going to do is bring the three speakers up here at the very end, and if you write your questions down as we go along, we're going to take a microphone, go out into the audience, and we will take questions. I'd like to comment. I appreciate Wayne coming up here and doing his presentation. I would like to remind everybody here, and I really have to congratulate the Granbury City Council This was 8 years ago that the BRA started asking for these water rates in 2004. 8 years. For the first time in 8 years, the City of Granbury has a seat at the table, and the BRA is paying attention. And I congratulate them. It's been a very, very long road, and I think we're going to have some success in this. Our next speaker, he's originally from Michigan, married, has 3 children, 5 grandchildren. He's retired U.S. Air Force. Dan Lewis, we appreciate your service. He's retired from Bell Helicopter, operated a fishing guide service here in the last few years on Lake Granbury. He's lived on Lake Granbury for 11 years. He was active in the Acton United Methodist Church. He was active so he's very familiar with the Lake Granbury watershed protection stakeholders, and this also included the golden algae study. He fought and won against a sewer plant that would discharge into Ruckers Creek into Lake Granbury. And he's also, of course, been asked to serve on the Brazos Space and Area Stakeholders team. The very last part is my favorite about this speaker. He believes that part of our God-given responsibility is to take care of the earth that he created. I would like for you to give a warm welcome to Dan Loomis.
Okay, I got the magic microphone, and my good friend Dan is going to be doing the slides for us. You'll notice that he had my presentation up a little bit early, but he's from A&M. Okay, next slide please, Dan. Okay, Brazos River Basin Expert Science Team produced a little document right here. This isn't all of it. There's a CD in the back full of more stuff. And their charge was to come up with the best possible environmental flows for the Brazos River from New Mexico to the Gulf of Mexico. And that's all in here. And if you want to read it before I leave, you can come up and read it. Okay, next slide, please. Our job, which was the Stakeholders Committee, was to create a set of rules that considered the impact, the input from BBEST, which is the science team, but consider human needs. That's different from strictly environmental needs. However, as was mentioned several times in all the meetings, we're humans and we're part of the environment. We truly are. Okay, that's our goal. Next slide, please, Dan. Okay, we considered 20 gauges on the Brazos River. We reached consensus on all but 3 of them, and those were approved by a majority vote of the stakeholders. This is our view of what the flows in the river should be based on the 20 gauges. We're only going to consider 2 of them tonight because we'll be here till midnight if we do all 20 of them. We're going to do the 2 on the Middle Brazos, which is the Brazos River at Palo Pinto, which is between Possum Kingdom and Lake Granbury, and the Brazos River at Glen Rose, which is, of course, between us and Lake Whitney. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, this is the Brazos River at Palo Pinto before they quit generating electricity at Possum Kingdom. Okay? See all those nice little blue peaks? Now, the next slide is, this is after. Do you see the change? That's water that's not coming to Lake Granbury anymore. That used to come all summer long when they were generating electricity at Possum Kingdom. The generators are gone. It's not ever going to generate another spark of electricity. So that's one of the things that we have to work with. Okay, next slide. Whoops, I think, did I skip one? No, okay. Here's our recommendations. Now we had to consider subsistence flows, which is the minimum possible flow, and we had to consider base flows for dry season, average season, and wet season. Those were easy because we just adopted system-wide all of the recommendations from the science team. The pulses, which are on the far right-hand side, were the tough ones. The pulses is where reservoirs get refilled. When it floods, the reservoirs fill up. That's a pulse, something above base flows. So the science team wanted a whole bunch more in peak flows, but that takes away from the value of building other reservoirs for storage of water so that we don't take so much out of Lake Granbury, which is a good idea. And what we did for the gauge at Palo Pinto, we went along with taking away the high pulses because that's what fills up Possum Kingdom, but we increased the number of lower pulses, like the ones that used to be there when they were generating electricity. Based on season, based on whether it's a wet season, average season, or dry season. Took a long time to get there. Next slide. Okay. This is the gauge at Glenrose when they were generating electricity. Notice all the nice spikes? One more time, Dan. Oops. If water doesn't flow in from Possum Kingdom, it can't flow out of here. As you've heard before, there's a large sucking sound called the nuclear power plant. Okay, next slide. Here's the recommendation from the science team, and this is for the Brazos River Glenrose. The top line was what they call an overbank flow. In human terms, that's called a flood, folks. And the reason that Possum Kingdom and Whitney are in the river is not only for water storage, but for flood protection. So we can't mandate out-of-bank flows. The other reason is the TCEQ has never approved overbank flows for any of the other rivers in the state of Texas. So we got rid of those. We got rid of the high pulse flows because that's where the reservoirs get their storage from. That's the changes that we made because we need water there for humans. Humans to feed, to water their cattle, to irrigate their crops, to flush the toilets, that's kind of important, to recreate on, that's why I was there, recreation's important to me. So, and manufacturing. So we had all those things that we had to come to an agreement on. We had some of our meetings in Waco, which were at Brazos River headquarters, by the way. They were gracious to give us a room, and they didn't like the answers they got from us. Sometimes we had 2-day meetings in Waco, which meant I spent the night in a hotel. And one of our second-day meetings, we started at 8 a.m. in the morning. We had a half hour for lunch. We left at 7 o'clock that night. And I had a 2-hour drive to get back home. That's how intense being on the stakeholder committee was. It was not an easy task to balance all the needs of all the different representatives at the table. Next one. Okay, there's our recommendations for Glenrose. Same thing. And what we achieved, because the day before we decided on this. We had a presentation from the assistant city manager about the economic impact of Lake Granbury. And because of that, that's part of why we got to add extra pulses. Because it's important that there be more water flowing in the middle section of the Brazos as a percentage than any other part. Because the economic impact is so great. And we heard the assistant city manager when he talked to us.
The city manager.
Huh?
The city manager.
Was that you?
That was me.
Okay. The city manager, I'm sorry. We had so many guest speakers, it was hard, and that was late in the show, so,
The reason I know that, I don't have an assistant city manager.
okay. Otherwise you'd made him go to Waco, right?
That's right.
I understand that. Okay, next slide. Here's the bottom line. Our recommendations are now in the hands of the TCEQ for final determination. They can do anything they want to our recommendations. So far, they have followed the other stream recommendations that have been sent in front of them. So we're encouraged by that. They're listening to the stakeholders. That's a good thing. Once finalized, they become the rules for additional water rights. Guess who's submitting a plan for additional water rights in November? BRA. Who was there first? We were. By their own admission, they will have to follow our rules for environmental flows in the river. That is a win. And we're not done yet, unfortunately, because now we have to develop a work plan to figure out ways to monitor the success of this plan that we put forward for environmental flows. Did it help the environment? Did it hurt the environment? Did it take away too much water for human needs? Or too much water away from the fish? Tonight I'm on the fish's side, okay? Okay. So that's what we did, and we hope we made a dent in keeping water flowing between Possum Kingdom and Lake Whitney, because that's our backyard. And there were 3 of us on the panel that could speak directly to that impact. So that was good. 3 out of almost 30. Next slide. Last one. You've got a paper and you got a pencil. At the bottom of that page is an email address. That's mine. Because I know you're going to go home tonight. Before you get home, you're going to say, man, I wish I had asked that question. Ta-da. Use the email. Send it to me. I will respond. Because I care about our lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Loomis. I would like to speak real quickly about TCEQ. Who last January 26, in 2012, was on the bus to Austin to go see TCEQ and visit? Who was on that bus? Let me tell you, that was quite a show. There would be a lot of, I could go on about that. We want to do that again. In about 18 months or so, TCEQ will get to their final decision on whether or not to allow the BRA to have all their water rights, some of the water rights they're asking for, or none. And we filled that room at Commissioners, and we were so fortunate that Senator Birdwell was able to introduce all of us, and we all stood up at the same time. They took notice. This time around, please, we asked as many as you can to come, try to plan that day, whatever day that is. How can you keep up with that? We, of course, LGWA, we have our own website. But quickly, if you don't mind, we have a website called Save Lake Granbury. We mentioned this is savelakegranbury.org. And what I would like to do is not fall down. And if you go to that site, you can actually obtain a little bit of information. But what I would recommend, you want to do something that doesn't cost you a cent. If you're on Facebook, go to Save Lake Granbury on Facebook and join that. There's over 700 on there right now. So I expect like this time tomorrow, I have about 800, I think. So please go on there. We try to keep that updated, and so as time goes on, and for example, if you'll write this date down, October 16th, next Tuesday, 5:30, the DRA is having an open public town hall meeting in Glen Rose at the Expo Center. Most of you know where that's in when you go into Highway 67, you go into town, it's right there on the right there. What they're going to do, they've done this in Granbury already, what they're going to do is discuss the updates of their water management study. We will be going there, LGWA and all our members, as many as we can, so if you can make it, they will have a small presentation and then there'll be questions and answers at the end. That gets very interesting at the very end. They will take comments, they'll take questions, they will listen. Doesn't mean they're going to do what we want, but they will listen out there. So we really appreciate that. Anyway, going on, I also would like to mention that our signs that we have here, we have Save Lake Granbury signs. This is part of called Raise the Lake. We started a fundraiser about 1 week ago. And we would like to raise $25,000 by November 26th. This is the time that the BRA will have their water management study completed and be presented to TCEQ. Right now, through Facebook and the sites of admission, savelakegranbury.org, you can actually go on the site, go to Raise the Lake fundraiser, and you can actually donate PayPal, MasterCard, or there's a place where you can actually mail in checks. We do appreciate, there's been a lot of donors that are in here tonight that have already done that. This way, through the items that Judy had mentioned, we can actually go forward, and as this process takes place in the next 18 months, we're going to be tailing right behind it, and between the city of Granbury, we're going to go ahead and try to march with them and get to Austin, and hopefully we're going to have a huge seat at the table, and we do appreciate it. Our next speaker is kind of close to my heart here. First of all, he's from my alma mater, and the Texas A&M Aggies and stuff, so it's appreciation that he's here today. Dr. Dan Roelke, he attained his PhD in oceanography in 1997 from Texas A&M. After his postdoctoral research at the Naval Research Laboratory, the Stennis Space Center, he joined the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Sciences at Texas A&M in 1998. Dr. Roelke's internationally recognized research program focuses on aquatic ecology and has been conducted throughout the U.S., Caribbean, Venezuela, Greece, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Antarctica. The overarching theme of the research involves issues of water quality and availability as it relates to human population growth and climate change, with a special emphasis on harmful algae blooms. Dr. Roelke has been working on water quality issues in the Central Brazos area for 10 years. He's a father of two, and I'm appreciating here is Dr. Dan Roelke. Give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. So you'll notice there's 3 names listed up there, and it's because I'm a bit schizophrenic, and I'm never sure which personality is going to show up. But tonight, it's Dan Roelke who's here. Go ahead and advance that slide, Dan. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about the golden algae problems that you have here in Granbury, but it's not just a problem in Granbury, it's throughout the U.S. It got its start in Texas, but it's quickly spread. So this is just yet one of the many examples of how Texas gives and gives to this united nation of ours, and I don't think we're fully appreciated for that. But anyway, it's all across the southern U.S. now, so it's not just a problem for Texas, and it's not just a problem for Granbury. The gold-colored counties there in the Texas map are where golden algae blooms have occurred. And then when they occur, they're often accompanied by very large fish kills. In Granbury, you don't have the huge fish kills anymore like you did back in the early 2000s. Not because the blooms are less toxic, but because you have a lot less fish, so they're not there to die. Go ahead, Dave. Okay, this is the organism. This is what it looks like. So this is underneath the microscope at 1,000x magnification. So this organism, for those of you who are engineers and measure small things, this is like 8 microns in length. So it's very small. I mean, it's smaller than a red blood cell in your veins. This organism is really interesting because it can grow like a plant or it can grow like an animal, right? So that's pretty cool. It's a pretty good survival strategy. So the picture you see of it there on the left, that's what it looks like when it's growing like a plant. The picture you see of it on the right, that's what it looks like when it's growing like an animal. So when it grows like an animal, it actually feeds on the bacteria that's in the water. So you can cut off the light to this organism, you can cut off the inorganic nutrients. This sucker is still going to survive because it's going to be able to eat the bacteria. Next slide. How this particular organism does its thing is it produces a toxin that it'll dissolve fine membranes. So if you were to get in the water during a golden algae bloom, your skin would be fine. You know, our skin's kind of like leather to these organisms. It's pretty impermeable. But your eyes and your tongue, on the other hand, wouldn't be in such good shape, right? Because that's some real fine membranes that we have there. If you're a gill-breathing animal, like a mussel or a fish, or in this case, these are the gills of a little zooplankton that the fish eat, you're hurting because that means those fine membranes dissolve and you bleed out. So all the little dots you see on these structures of the zooplankton, that's the Parnesian particle, which is the golden algae. So it is attached to the organism, it's killed it, and it's now sucking the juices out of it, getting its nutrition the right way. So next slide. These slides might be a little bit difficult to see, but when the organism is growing like a plant, it's toxic just a little bit. So it's getting most of its nutrition from inorganic nutrients, it's getting its energy from the sun. For the next slide. But when it becomes stressed, so it can become stressed by either nutrient limitation, it can start to get salty, if the temperature could stress it, there's many things that stress it. Once it gets stressed, that's when it starts producing these toxins. Those toxins, they're not meant to kill fish, that's just a side effect. These toxins are meant to kill other algae because it likes to eat the other algae. So think about this critter. So it has the ability to eat bacteria, it has the ability to kill its competitors, and it has the ability to kill its predators, and then eat its predators too. So this is a pretty advanced organism in terms of surviving. Right, next slide. So, the solutions for Lake Granbury as a whole would involve flow coming from Possum Kingdom. And the previous 2 speakers have talked a little bit about that. That's not what I'm going to talk about today. Instead, what I want to talk about is how do you manage for this organism on smaller scales? So, for example, in the many coves that you have all along Granbury, if you wanted to prevent blooms from occurring in those coves, how would you do it? And first of all, why would you want to do it, right? Well, there's a big reason why. If you can prevent the blooms from propagating into a cove, you actually create refuge habitat for fish. Now, the nice thing about these blooms is they don't last forever. As the water begins to warm up, the bloom goes away. So if the fish go into the coves during the period of blooms in the lake, they're protected, if you can protect the cove. When the blooms subside, the fish can repopulate out into the lake. And I know that fish do this. I was in Lake Whitney when we were sampling. We got up early in the morning. The bloom was going on out in the open part of the lake, and there was this wave of fish, just a huge school of fish coming into the cove where we were set up our camp. And I watched these fish just continue moving up into the cove as the bloom propagated into the cove. And then by the end of the day, they were all dead because they ran out of water where they could run away from the bloom. But that's what got me thinking, well, hey, if we could have prevented that bloom from getting into this cove, those fish wouldn't be dead. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. My research program is focused a lot on how to use water within the lake to flush the coves. So it's not using new water outside the lake, but rather taking deep water that is free of golden algae from the lake and pumping it into a cove and creating a sort of a pulsed flushing system. Think of it as a toilet. You want to keep your toilet flushed, right? But that's the idea. And you set up a refuge habitat in the cove by doing that. And then there's a bunch of other things too. There's 8 total points, and I'll talk about the rest of those points at the end of the talk. So to test this pulse flushing idea, the steps we went through was to first mess around with the culture, which we did, and then we messed around with experiments in the lab, and then we scaled up to actually do a mesocosm experiment in one of the coves. And then the next step will actually be to do an in-lake demonstration. So the first thing I want to show is just some of the results from a mesocosm experiment done in a cove. So we put out 36 of these floating bags. These are big bags. You can get in them. They're 6 feet deep. They're a good 3.5 feet in diameter. And then we do various treatments in the bags, and we watch what happens in the bag over time. Just go ahead, Dan. So what we did with some of the bags is we used deep water from the lake, and we did a flushing of the bag, just a portion of the water, once every 7 days. And the diamonds that are the filled-in diamonds, so the dark symbols on the graph, that is what the golden algae did over time. So time has gone across the x-axis, the y-axis is the biomass. The control bags are those open squares. So you can see that the golden algae developed actually quite high during the late fall. So that would be the graph to your left that says pre-bloom. But when you did the pulse flushing, the bloom never developed. If you look at what happened when we did this experiment during a time that a bloom was going on in Granbury, you see the control bags went way over the bloom, but yet the bags where we did the treatment, it didn't. So go to the next slide, Dan. Now this is toxicity. So the higher the symbol on that bar, the more toxic it is. So during the pre-bloom period, the bags, the control bags, by the time we got to the end, they were toxic, right? They were killing fish. The bags that had the pulsed flows never developed any toxicity, 0, during the whole time that bloom occurred. And then if you look at when we initiated the experiment while the bloom was already ongoing, again you see that the open squares are much more toxic than what the diamonds are. So if you start with toxic conditions, doing the pulse flushing greatly ameliorates those conditions. Now what was cool about those experiments, and I won't show you a ton of graphs, this technique was completely benign to other life forms. So the other algae, the beneficial algae, they were fine. Zooplankton were fine. It just affected the parva. So this is a very effective technique to preventing a bloom from occurring over a small scale, at the scale of a cove. So now we started thinking, well, what coves could we select to do this demonstration study? So this gets tricky, right? Because if a cove has a lot of natural water exchange with the open lake, that's going to limit the effectiveness of this technique, right? Because that water that exchanges with the open lake has golden algae in it, right? So what we wanted to do here, and maybe some of you guys saw us doing it this last year, we were out here doing this in 2012, we wanted to do these dye tracer studies, or we put dye throughout an entire cove, and then we watched the dissipation. Did you actually see us doing it? Yeah. We had lots of calls, and we had the Brazos River Authority Rangers come out and visit us a lot, wondering what we were doing to the lake, because all this red stuff is in the water. So what we were able to do then is measure the natural water exchange rates with these dye tracer studies, drop them into a mathematical model, and then the model predicts what's going to happen. So let's go to the next slide, Dan. So this, we did 3 coves. We did Ranger Slough, we did Beat Creek, and Thorpe Spring. Go ahead, Dan. And those of you who saw us, this was the white sea pro that we had out there, and how we introduced the dye. Boy, I get the feedback when I stand right there. And how we introduced the dye is we would just put the, hold it back on. We would put it in the outwash of the boat motor. And that's what you see. So then the boat would just do these tight transects all through the cove to get the dye dispersed, and then we'd watch it disperse over the course of a week. Okay, Dan. So how we would do that, we had an onboard sensor that was super sensitive. It was a fluorometer that could detect this well beyond what the naked eye could. So for example, those of you who saw us out there, you could see that red dye, but within like a couple hours you couldn't see it anymore. But our onboard fluorometers could easily see it over the course of a week. So this is us in Ranger Slough. And what you see, that blue dotted line there, was the path that the boat took. So a lot of you might have thought we were crazy just going back and forth through the cove, but this was a methodology to our craziness. And everywhere we see these little black dots, that's where we got our Baylor colleagues to go out and do the vertical profiling for this dye. Go ahead, Dan. So the next 7 slides are going to be the same map, and what you'll be looking at will be the distribution of this dye. Go ahead, Dan, and go through the next 7 slides there. So you can see how it goes down over time. One more, and one more. And so what we get from that then is we can calculate the total amount of dye that was in the cove. We know how much that was over time. We can fit a mathematical equation through that, and the decay rate of that line, that's our flushing. So all that work was just to give us that one number. But it turns out that number is very important. Next one, please. So through the years that we've been working in Lake Granbury, we've developed a mathematical model that allows us to predict when you guys are going to have a bloom and when you're not going to have a bloom. And it's a pretty good model. So that those black dots that you see, that's data from Lake Granbury that we've collected. And the solid line, or the continuous line that goes through it, that's the prediction of the model. So the model is actually pretty good at predicting the bloom. So what we want to do, go ahead, Dan. We want to take that model and we want to drop it into this configuration for Ranger Slough. What the model is going to do is predict the bloom going on in the open lake. It's going to predict the dynamics going on in the cove. And you can see that little blue line that's in or the little blue dot that's in the open part of the lake. That's where we propose to pump water from the deep part of the lake and move it into the head regions of the cove. And then what the model allows us to do is change the flow, the amount of water that we send through there, and how long the pump stays on. And this is what the predictions look like. So that top line that you see would be the population dynamics of golden algae over time if we did nothing in the cove. So you end up having a bloom, you end up killing fish. If in this simulation, what is it? That's like, I can't see that from there. When we first see the pulses start, I'm not sure how many days that's into there, my eyes aren't that good. But that's when the pumps would turn on if you were to do this. That lower solid line that goes across the bottom, that would be what the population dynamics would look like if you turned on the pumps at I think this was at 43 million gallons per day. If you left the pumps on all the time, so 7 days a week, you wouldn't have a bloom. If you didn't want to leave the pumps on that long, and in this case, if you just turn the pumps on for 5 days and then turn them off for 2, those are all the lines that you see in the middle. So when you turn the pumps off, the water quickly in the open lake, the bloom in the open lake quickly repopulates the cove. Next slide, Dan. So what you can do then, if you know the flushing rate that's going across the x-axis, you can predict the bloom reduction. So for example, the flushing rate was about 0.25. If you turn those pumps on 7 days, you go up to that 7-day line, move over to the y-axis on the left. That's telling you you're looking at about 70% reduction in the bloom. Okay? So this model gives us a very strong quantitative prediction of how much you'll be able to reduce the bloom. Now, Dan, let's go to the next one. So that's what we've done so far. What do we need to do? Well, the next thing we need to do with this hydraulic flushing is evaluation study. So we know what the pumping infrastructure would be to get those flow volumes. What we need to know is how expensive the pipe would be, how expensive it would be to maintain the system, and how much electricity would it use to run these pumps. So we know how much it would cost. What we don't know is how quickly fisheries would recover, and what would be the economic benefit for the level of restored tourism and recreation on the lake. So that's what needs to be done next, because this technique only makes sense if the benefit outweighs the cost. We have a good idea what the cost is going to be, but we don't know any idea yet about what the benefit would be. Now that's the flushing stuff that we've been doing, but there's other options, and we've worked on these other things, and I'm just going to briefly mention those to you. So let's go to the next one, Dan. So there are chemical techniques, right? You don't have to manipulate flushing. You can try to add stuff to the water to kill the cells directly. You can do that with ammonia pulses. I mean, nothing likes ammonia. If you hit it with a shock of ammonia, most things die. Or you can hit it with some sort of copper-based chemical, right? These are very common techniques that are used in fish ponds, like people's tanks, their bass ponds. They use them in aquaculture facilities, and they work, they really kill things. But that's the problem, though. They kill everything. They don't just kill some things. So if you do this approach, you're going to kill some of the target fish that you want to populate. So that's a big drawback, is that these things are a bit too lethal. Let's go to the next one. This is a brand new chemical that only has recently become commercially available. This is one that we've worked on in my lab. It's a pretty slick chemical because it kills golden algae, but it doesn't kill other algae, and it doesn't kill zooplankton. And the test that we just did with bluegill, it doesn't kill them either. So this looks very promising because it kills golden algae, but it doesn't kill other things. This needs further testing, though. We need to test it with other species of fish. It might be bluegill are more resistant. There might be other fish that are more vulnerable. But this, I hope we get some funds to go forward on, because this could represent a silver bullet that would just knock out parvum and not other organisms. The next step in this would be, if it is indeed a silver bullet for parvum, the question is how much would it cost to treat the number of coves that you would want to do for the amount of time that you need to do it. Next slide, Dan. Now this other one, the interesting thing about Texas is golden algae is in almost every lake in Texas, but it only blooms in some of the lakes. The lakes where it doesn't bloom, they tend to have lots of cyanobacteria in them, so that's a different kind of phytoplankton in the water. Cyanobacteria also do bad things to cows and dogs and sometimes people, but they do bad things to parvum too. So parvum and cyanobacteria have this chemical warfare that goes on back and forth to each other. One thing that might work is to try to promote growth of cyanobacteria in Granbury, but not so much that it becomes a problem to other wildlife, but just enough that it becomes a problem to golden algae. There's a lot more work that needs done on that, but that's an idea that we leave sitting on the back burner. Go ahead, Dan. Now, what I think is the most promising of all the techniques is to change the pH of the water. So these next two techniques that we list here, these don't do anything to golden algae. Instead, they act on the toxin. So with pH, if you lower the pH, if you neutralize the water, so the water in these areas are naturally basic. If you neutralize those waters, it changes the ionization state of this toxin, and it becomes completely harmless. It doesn't kill anything, right? So if you just neutralize the water, that would do that. What would it take to do that? This is the big stigma. You have to add acid to the water, right? If you have basic waters here, you got to add acid to get it to be neutralized. There's a huge social stigma against adding acid to water that would have to be overcome to do that kind of thing. The second thing we would need to do is the acid that we used in our experiments was sulfuric acid. Lowering the pH to 7 didn't harm anything, it didn't kill anything. There was nothing wrong with adding the acid, but what the long-term effects could be is the accumulation of sulfur in the system, right? Because if you add sulfuric acid, many years in a row, that sulfur doesn't go away. The acid part goes away, but the sulfur doesn't. So the long-term effects of sulfur addition is something that we need to be studied. Next one. This is another great chemical. This causes the toxin to oxidize. It becomes completely ineffective. Works wonderfully, but it's very expensive. The next one. And then this last one is a clay addition. The Japanese do this to control their harmful algal blooms. They spray clay all over the place. The clay hits the water, stuff binds to the clay, and the clay sinks, and it removes the cells from the water as it sinks. Excellent technique if you're in a deep water system. But you guys aren't in deep water here, right? You're in a shallow water system. And this particular organism has a benthic resting stage, and it forms seed beds. So it's not a good idea to increase its rate of deposition into your sediments, because otherwise you will create a seed bed, and then you'll have a bloom every year. Go ahead, Dan. So, what I think are the next steps forward are to make advances on these three areas. So the hydraulic flushing, and again, I said that was the need for evaluation study, increased work on this chemical, this potential silver bullet, flumioxethin, and then the last one is the pH approach. And that's another thing that still needs dialogue. And I think that's the last slide. Yeah, that is the last slide.
What we're going to do now is we're going to bring the three guest speakers up, and we'll just seat them up here. I know there's going to be a lot of questions now, and what we're going to do is Judy's going to bring the microphone around, and we're going to open up the opportunity. Before we do that, real quick, if you do, okay, if LGWA, if you would like that membership, we have Lori over here at the tables that if you would like to join tonight or go to our website, you can do that. We also have, of course, the signs and banners available. Okay, let's start. Any questions for any of them? Here we go. Thank you. Okay. Okay, my name is Billy Smart. I have a place on the lake here, and my questions are several parts. So I need an answer to the first question. The first that you guys showed tonight was that the lake has gone down since the generation facilities at PK have been done away with. Is that correct? That's correct, okay. Why were the generation facilities shut down?
It cost too much to operate them, and there was a huge maintenance fee, and the people that buy electricity didn't want.
Can't hear you.
Did you get that one working?
Yeah, we'll work on it. Try it back.
They quit generating electricity because it wasn't economically feasible. Number one, it took more people to operate that generator at Possum Canyon than it does to run the new plants at Squaw Creek. Number two, there were huge maintenance costs because that generator was older than dirt and it needed a lot of maintenance, and they were going to add that to the cost, to the electricity for the people that were buying it, and it just didn't make sense monetarily, so it's gone.
I just want to tell you, we have lots of people asking.
Okay, this is, you will like this, okay? You did away with that deal because it cost too much money. You said that we lose 35% of the ad valorem value in taxes at Granbury, Texas. My calculations for that is roughly $2 billion that we lose in Granbury. Why can't the city of Granbury go up there and buy those things, even though you're going to lose money at it? You're going to make your money back, and you're going to keep your ad valorem values at a higher value. You're going to keep your tourism up. You're going to keep your sales tax values up. You will more than make what you will lose in owning those deals up there. I have a friend that owns a truck sales, and he sells to the cities trucks at below his cost. And you think he's crazy, but he makes it back on the service. He does all the service. Why can't the city of Granbury go buy those generators, put them back into service? Even if you lose money, you're going to make it back on your ad valorem taxes and your sales tax that you're going to come to the city.
Well, the question is, we in the city of Granbury are 8,500 people, and the people in Hood County are 5,200, or 52,000 people. So you're saying, why can't the 14% of the county go in and spend the money, and our citizens do that quite often. Okay, this is a county issue, okay? And so therefore, we could go by that, but here's a different solution to that, okay? One of the reasons that the release is not being done is that the only reason it was being released on the electric plant was that it had a lower gate that was releasing water out. In November, the BRA will complete the construction of what we'll call lower gates. They've been working on it for now over a year. And so therein is part of the way that we want to approach the BRA to get them to more, see, whenever the lower gates were not available through the electric processing, then they had no way, after it got past, okay. They had no way to release the water past the top of the dam, okay, after it got down to what, 7, 8 feet below what was normal operation. Then they had no way to release it. As of November, they very well may be able, in fact they will, they've created lower level gates now that will simulate the activity that would happen during the operation of the electrical plant. And so, that's one of the approaches. We don't care, you know, we'd be happy for a good county, the county judge is aware, he certainly wants to go and purchase that electric company and get it operating, I'm sure. But basically, there's probably a different solution that will help us get that release going quicker.
You're gonna get the water coming back down like it was?
Well, we're going to ask them to, yeah. That's part of what we're talking about in trying to get a more accurate release ratio, okay? The fact, but here's the bad news, okay? Not only did they put lower gates on Possum Kingdom, they put lower gates on Lake Granbury too. So there still has to be a management function that doesn't release as much money, water out of Lake Granbury as there does. It all comes back to BRA management, okay? As you've seen, when it rains, the lake doesn't go up, that's BRA management at work, okay? They pay people a lot of money to go make sure that that lake doesn't change and that it sends water down to the lower end of the Brazos and make sure that those people have water as well.
Who runs the BRA?
Well, BRA runs itself pretty much.
Who's the head guy?
Phil Ford. Phil Ford is the top guy.
They're appointed by the governor.
By the governor.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and go on. Next question. I've got questions here. We have one microphone, so we're going to do the best we can. I can. If Granbury is so concerned, why did they say sell $1 million worth of water this year? Wayne, you want to answer that?
Hey, I'm the guy. Okay. No, we didn't sell it this year. We sold it last year. And it turns out we only sold $500,000 worth. And once again, you have to understand, we pay $600,000 a year for our 10,800 acre feet. And our citizens watch that water float down the river. We have no control over that water. Just because we buy it doesn't mean we get it. In fact, we only use about 15% of that water. And the right to the water has nothing to do with where it's stored. Take the case in point, okay? We could have let that water continue to float down the river and said, you know what, we had, just so you know, I don't know if you know the story, but Dow Chemical, who's at the far end of the river, said we need some water and we're willing to pay you $500,000. In fact, we were going to sell us another $500,000, $1 million to let us have your rights. And we said, okay, we'll do that. Our citizens, they pay high utility rates right now, and we had an option, okay, to say, yes, we will take the $1 million and you can have our rights. Or no, we will not sell you the water and you can't have our rights. And so there was a big question about, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? And so I said, you know what, I'll go talk to BRA. So I went to talk to BRA and I said, you know what, I will not sell that water if you'll guarantee me that you won't release that water downstream and that I can control what water goes downstream. Oh no, you have no control over the water. Well, so you're telling me I can turn down the $500,000 $1 million and the water still floats out of Lake Granbury? And he said, absolutely. You have no control over it. We control the water with needs. The fact that you have the rights, you're selling rights, you're not selling the water. And so that's true. So I had the option of, and you have to understand, that water was only about 3 or 4 inches worth on Lake Granbury. So I had the option of putting money in the bank and maybe lowering it 3 to 4 inches, which that assumes it's a bathtub. Okay, it's not a bathtub. Okay, it's a river. Okay, so the citizens of Granbury came out way ahead. We put the money in the bank, and the lake didn't change that much because of it. And that's the real story. We didn't sell water, we sold rights. And so the rights were taken out down at the end of the lake. And they would have been taken out anyway. You know, we had no control of where the water was kept. And so we could never verify that we could keep the water in Lake Granbury. So Lake Granbury wasn't impacted. They still made the decision of what they would release when they released, the same as if we had taken the money or not. So it was a good decision. And the lake filled back up. As soon as the lake filled back up, it's a non-event because we start all over again. So the citizens of Granbury won and it didn't have much impact on Lake Granbury.
Okay, we're gonna take just a second. Matt, did you need to do something with the?
He's gonna get that.
He's gonna.
Microphone.
Check.
You guys get you a little microphone up here.
I do have. Okay, I do have other questions up here, real quick. How do people get?
Well, wait, the thing is like.
I can actually answer this question. How do people get selected to serve on the VRA? The VRA has a board of directors that is appointed by the governor of the state. Do they have good care, credentials, and experience? Well, beats me. No, they do. You have to realize that the VRA basically is in the business of selling water. That is their business. It's run like a business. It's like a private. They don't get any tax money from the state. They go out and they run a business and they sell dock fees, they sell irrigation fees, they sell water. And that's what they're in the business to do. And I think we found the best approach is to go to our elected officials to get most of anything we want done. This has been our best method, and I would suggest you do the same. If you like to spend time with the BRA, good luck. Okay, are we fixed?
Where'd he go?
Okay, we're going to go to the next question. This is for Dr. Dan. You can actually read the question.
Can't see us.
Yes. Any kind of acid. Yeah, well, the question is how about muriatic acid versus sulfuric acid? Anything that lowers the pH. The acting mechanism there is the pH has to lower. But when you add something to the water, though, when you add an acid, it's not just the OH, which is the part that is important here. You're adding another element as well. So any compound that contains any sort of nitrogen or any sort of phosphorus, that's going to cause problems downstream because it's going to cause eutrophication. Sulfur, on the other hand, is not something that leads to eutrophication. So that was why I went with sulfuric acid.
Okay, this is actually a question. We do have a county here. They said this question is we need a combined effort of the city of Granbury and Hood County. I think what they're actually asking here, they make a statement. Basically, is there any plans for Hood County to actually combine with the city of Granbury? Do you?
Daryl,
No? No? Okay, I guess there's not any plan right now.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is.
Okay, well, when you get with the city, let me know. I think we want to know whether or not, of course, the city has taken on some legal attorneys to go forward, so they were asking whether or not if the county was actually looking at any of that. Do you know anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, not at this time. Okay, are there any other questions? That's all other questions that are on here. Any other questions?
Questions?
Come out to you.
Okay. Wait, okay. We have a question?
Check.
Testing.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Gary Couch, and you talked about the cost of the pumps. Could you go into that a little bit? And do you have any kind of funding possibilities?
Yeah, so the pumps that we were looking at were the solar bead pumps.
Can you hear him?
And those were about $50,000 a piece. But the pumps weren't the expensive part, it's the piping. So the different people that I've talked to with piping, that might be $500,000 plus per code for the piping. Now the person who gave me those numbers, I think he was hitting on the upscale, on the, telling me I needed larger piping than what we really need. So what I really need to do is talk more with the city engineer and get more information from that regard. Now, what was the second half of your question? Oh, do we have money? Yeah, the golden algae research from the academic side of things has come to a screeching halt because we are out of money. The only entities I know that might still be doing research might be Texas Parks and Wildlife, and there might be some entities who do monitoring, so not research, but just going out and testing, and if anyone's doing that, it would be the Brazos River Authority. But in terms of the research, the developmental stuff, all that has come to a screeching halt.
Hey,
Well-
Joe, let me say one thing
Okay,
about,
let me get this to you, Darrell.
I want to answer that question a little bit.
What we've done is we just passed a budget, and there wasn't any money put in there in the budget, and we would have to go back. But I want to make one thing clear. It's like building putting in a generator plant up at PK. If you don't want the county to do it, I don't know what it would cost, 10 million, 20 million, but it would come out of your pocket. This is, it's like building the Y. It's going to cost $10 million. That's 2 cents on the tax. So anything that we do, if it's 20 million, that's going to cost you 4 cents. So if it's worth it, then what you guys need to do is to vote on it, and we'll do it. But I guarantee you, it's a county decision. It's your decision. It's not my decision. It's your decision. But we'll do what you want.
Question?
I'm not quite sure who to address this to, but you referred to X amount of gallons going to the nuclear plant. Can you put that in percentage-wise, I guess, versus lake levels or something, that percentage going to nuclear? And I also heard that a lot of the water is going down south to the rice farm. Can y'all verify that?
First, I'll comment on that real quick. 40,000 acre feet is used at the Comanche Peak Power Plant as of today every year. There's 120,000 acre feet in Lake Granbury. So that kind of gives you an idea. To give you an idea of the amount of water that goes into the power plant that gets lost, it's like taking a residential swimming pool the size of a residential, which is about 25,000 gallons, and then evaporating into the air every minute. So it kind of gives you an idea. There's a lot of water that goes over the canyon. We need the power plant, there's no doubt about it. We just need to come up with better ways either to provide water to it or a better water management plan. The other question? What was the other question? Oh, the rice farmers. As far as I know, there are no rice farmers downstream of the Brazos River. We're talking more about the Colorado River, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's Dow Chemical takes a lot of water. They're on the very tail end, and they have senior water rights. They will, I promise you, Dow Chemical will get the water that they demand because they are senior water right holders.
Well, and I just want to say that, of course, and we appreciate your questions because that's what rumors are about. And we hear a lot of questions from people that they say, well, I drive around here and I see people watering their lawn out of the lake all the time. That's why the water level's down. That's not why the water level is down, and it doesn't go to the rice farmers downstream. But that's why you're here, is to learn more about what really is happening and why the water levels are low. And we feel that in a great deal of it, it's mismanagement. But we also want to encourage you to stay involved, be involved, because it's about us. We are the only ones that are going to be able to push forward protection for the lake. The state has protection for the river, but they got that through litigation. They were able to get legislation for in-stream flow for the river. The river that runs through the lake is protected, but the lake is not protected yet. One more question.
Could I add something to that?
Who is
to that
that?
answer? That's me,
Oh.
Dan. not the Dr. Dan, the real Dan.
Okay, the other Dan. The real Dan.
The largest user, the largest customer for the Brazos River Authority is for electrical power generation. Not rice farmers, not anybody else. It's electrical power generation.
Good question, we hear it all the time. Okay.
You said that BRA was asking for a 60% increase.
That's right.
Where were
That's
they
correct.
going to need that 60% increase?
They didn't
Who were
want
going
to tell
be
us. They
selling?
wanted to tell us afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah, we're not.
When they wanted, this
there
is
was
the
no
truth.
explanation as to why they needed 60% more.
No, they wanted it, because they couldn't tell us, they couldn't tell TCQ what they were gonna do with that water. Isn't that the truth?
That's true, except
Essentially.
except the expansions to Manatee.
Yeah,
They would admit that.
they would admit that they were gonna use water for that, but, 60% more, which is essentially the rest of the water in the upper river basin, upper Brazos Basin. Okay, one more question. We promised to try to keep this to 20 minutes, but we've gone over it, but okay, one more question.
I'm Donnie Sellers, and this question is for Dr. Rourke. Years ago, as far as I know, I've been on the lake for 20 years. We didn't have golden algae problems. We probably did, but it wasn't significant, and we didn't worry about it. Was it the natural water flow through the lake that kept that from happening, or was it just not there? I understand it's 2,000 years old.
Yes, it would have. So prior to 2001, which is when you had the first very large blooms that propagated from Possum Kingdom all the way down through the Brazos, you had several dry years in a row, and what that caused was the lake to be saltier than normal. So salinity of natural seawater is 35 parts per thousand. Up in Possum Kingdom, the salinity got to 4, right? So I mean, you would easily be able to taste that salt amount. This particular organism, golden algae, loves the salt. So that's what enabled it to just take off like that. Now, once it gets a foothold within a system, it's very hard to get it out of the system. So your salinities today are lower than what they were in the early 2000s, but that doesn't matter. You've crossed that threshold where the organism has gotten a foothold. So now it will bloom with these lower salinities. The blooms will get more severe if salinity were to go back up again. This organism is also really sensitive to flushing events because it has a very low growth rate. So when you have a flushing event, it tends to get obliterated. So these inflows that these gentlemen are talking about, it was you, Dan, showing the episodic inflows with the pulses. Those pulses are like so important. The pulses are probably more important than the baseline flow. And when you take the pulses out of the system, organisms like golden algae just love that, and they can really take off.
We're going to wrap it up here real quick. I want to make one comment, or actually, this is a question that has come to me several times in the last couple of months. And the question is why last year when the lake was 7 feet low, we were in a drought situation, and we could understand that the lake would be so low. Why this year, when we're not in a drought situation, we're 4 feet low? And the answer is this. Last year, 2011, the BRA came up with this water management plan between the drawdown between PK and Granbury. Drawdown 1.75 to 1. Let's just say it's 2 to 1, makes it easier. So for every 2 feet PK goes down, we go down a foot. Last spring, Granbury filled up. We were full. Possum Kingdom never got full. They were 6 feet low. So we get full, they're 6 feet low. Drawdowns messed up. What do? Well, they're going to release water downstream anyway for environmental flows. So they do that. And their lake drops. We're not getting any relief from PK. Why? Drawdown. We got to get down 3 feet or so before they're going to release water to us. Here's the problem. If every year we have water, that rain that comes into Lake Granbury between Possum Kingdom and Lake Granbury and never hits Possum Kingdom, they're going to drain the water out. So we're going to have a lot more complications. So this idea of their drawdown, that they presented and brought into the system last year is mismanagement. This is one of our problems. And it created a problem this year we have never seen before. We should not be close to 4 feet down. Well, in fact, you're over 4 feet down. There's no way. Maybe a foot, but not 4 feet. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here. Now, Shelley, if you come up here.
Thank you, Joe Williams, Judy McHugh, Dan Loomis, Van Rolke, and Wayne McKeithen, and Jim Klein for putting this together and helping us understand how to protect and preserve Hood County's greatest resource next to Dana Bowman. The next meeting of the Dick Collins Legacy Speakers Forum is coming up Saturday, October 20th, 9 o'clock here at the club. General Chris Adams will speak to us about national security and its implications for the 21st century. I hope you can all join us at 9 o'clock that morning for the program and come early at 8:30 to have breakfast at our breakfast buffet. Thank you all for attending tonight, and we hope to see you again.